Sophia's suburban home lay in stillness, the quiet pierced only by the faint hum of distant traffic. A thriving lawyer with an outwardly flawless life, she stood by the kitchen sink, her gaze fixed on the well-kept lawns of neighboring houses. Her husband Daniel, an architectural engineer, was away on yet another business trip, and their two children were sound asleep upstairs. Yet beneath this picture-perfect exterior, an overwhelming sense of loneliness consumed her. One day, Sophia's younger brother Ethan moved to New York and temporarily stayed with her family. Ethan, 5 years her junior, was a carefree soul recovering from heartbreak and eager for a fresh beginning. The siblings had always shared a close bond, and his arrival brought new light to her otherwise monotonous days. His laughter and laid-back demeanor evoked memories of carefree childhood days spent running through fields and climbing trees. As weeks passed, their relationship began to evolve. Late one night, unable to sleep due to work stress, Sophia found Ethan in the dimly lit kitchen, making hot chocolate. The glow from the stove cast soft shadows as they sat at the table, warm mugs in hand, sharing childhood memories and admitting to feelings of loneliness. Ethan met her gaze, his eyes catching the faint flicker of the stove light. "You don't have to shoulder everything alone," he murmured, his tone soft and full of compassion, stirring an unexpected response within her. The air between them grew heavy with unsaid emotions as they talked for hours. The conversation flowed easily, offering comfort neither had realized they needed. When they eventually retired for the night, an unspoken understanding lingered. In the weeks that followed, their interactions became increasingly complicated. After a family gathering, Ethan stepped outside to smoke, the crisp night air mingling with the moon's silvery light over the backyard. Sophia joined him, the sound of gravel underfoot breaking the silence. Standing side by side, they spoke, the space between them gradually narrowing with every exchange. Beneath the moonlit sky, their conversation turned to unvoiced regrets and emotions. The scent of tobacco mingled with unspoken truths, and then, without warning, Ethan leaned in to kiss her. Sophia froze briefly, but did not pull away. The kiss was hesitant, yet sparked something she had not felt in years. Their forbidden relationship began unfolding in stolen moments when Daniel and the children were away. For Sophia, Ethan filled a void she hadn't fully recognized. His touch, his gaze, and his presence awakened feelings long dormant. But their affair came at a steep cost, an ever-present guilt and the looming dread of discovery. Sophia began to realize the potential devastation this relationship could wreak on her family and the sibling bond she shared with Ethan. Each secret encounter deepened her guilt, making her increasingly anxious. Yet she struggled to let go. Ethan became her anchor to a part of herself she feared had been lost. Their clandestine meetings were both solace and torment, every kiss a poignant reminder of their risks. After one particularly intense encounter, Sophia lay awake, her heart pounding. Unease washed over her as she grappled with the morality of their actions. Staring at the ceiling, her mind churned with questions about the future. What would happen if Daniel discovered the truth? How would it affect their children? These thoughts weighed heavily, leaving her restless. Sensing her distress, Ethan tried to console her. "We'll figure it out," he whispered one night as they lay together in the dark, his arm draped over her. "We just have to be cautious." But the fear only intensified, and Sophia withdrew. Her interactions with Daniel and the children strained. She knew she needed to end the affair, but the thought of losing Ethan was unbearable. Their time together became both a joy and a source of immense pain. Their intimacy was a series of stolen instances, each touch a shared secret. One afternoon, with Daniel at a conference and the children at school, Sophia and Ethan were alone in the house. Anticipation thickened the air as they moved through familiar spaces, their hearts pounding in unison. They met in the study, the soft light from the window casting subtle shadows. Ethan's eyes locked with hers, and without a word, he moved closer. His hands rested on her waist, his touch both gentle and firm, sending shivers down her spine. She leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both fervent and tender. As the kiss deepened, they explored each other's emotions, their connection becoming electric. They stumbled to the couch, their passion clumsy but intense. Ethan traced her jawline with his fingers, his thumb brushing softly against her lips. Sophia closed her eyes, savoring the sensation as her breath quickened. Sophia felt the warmth of his lips trace a line down her neck, lingering at her collarbone. Her body arched instinctively in response to his touch, her fingers threading through his hair as she pulled him closer. Ethan's hands moved to her blouse, his fingers shaking slightly, while he worked each button free. The fabric slid away, exposing her lace bra. He stopped, his gaze darkening with desire as he absorbed the sight before him. Sophia's pulse quickened under the weight of his stare, which left her feeling both exposed and empowered. He leaned forward, his lips grazing the delicate fabric, as his breath sent warmth across her skin. A shiver ran through her as her hands moved to the hem of his shirt, slipping beneath it to explore the smooth surface of his back. He let out a quiet groan, his hands finding her hips and pulling her closer, while his lips sought hers again. The heat between them was almost unbearable, their bodies moving together in a rhythm that was as familiar as it was electrifying. Sophia's fingers moved to the button of his jeans. Trembling slightly, she undid it. Ethan's breath caught as she pushed the denim down, her hands gliding over his hips. Breaking the kiss, his eyes locked onto hers with a silent question. She gave a small nod, her voice barely audible. Yes. He pulled her into his lap, his hands exploring her body with fervor, touching and caressing. She felt the intensity of his response, the fire in his movements igniting her desire even more. Their connection deepened as they moved together, slow and deliberate, every touch a testament to their undeniable bond. The world around them dissolved, leaving only the two of them entwined in a forbidden embrace. The days that followed blurred together as Sophia went through her daily routines, her heart aching with emptiness. She missed him with a deep, constant yearning, the absence of his presence a persistent reminder of her longing. Though she tried to channel her focus into work and family, the memories of their clandestine moments lingered, haunting her. She knew she needed to find a way to rebuild herself, to heal and pick up the shattered pieces of her life. One evening, as she stood by the window with morning light filtering through the curtains, Sophia faced the reality of the challenges ahead. She needed to reconcile her past choices with her current responsibilities. The path forward was uncertain and fraught with quiet sorrow, but she resolved to try. Drawing in a steadying breath, she braced herself for what lay ahead, determined to confront the consequences of her decisions and to make amends where she could. Eventually, Ethan made the choice to leave, bringing their affair to an end. They met one last time in the garden, where the moonlight stretched shadows across the yard. We can't keep doing this, but I'll never regret loving you, he said, his voice breaking with emotion. Sophia watched him walk away, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and longing. The weight of their decision pressed heavily on her, settling like a stone in her chest. The house was quiet, the darkness wrapping around her as Sophia crept down the hallway, her heart burdened by the consequences of her choices. She understood the road ahead would be challenging, but she felt ready to face it. For the first time in what felt like forever, she sensed a faint glimmer of hope, an inkling that she could move forward, mend her life, and find healing. The memory of Ethan's touch and the intensity of their shared moments lingered, a bittersweet reminder of the depth of her emotions and the complexity of her decisions.